I married the first guy I met. When people hear that, they often raise their eyebrows, make a face, or ask the same question that used to echo inside my own head. Did I make the right decision? The truth is, for a long time, I sat with that question, turning it over like a stone in my hand, feeling every edge of doubt, regret, and confusion. But here's what I've come to understand. Not just intellectually, but at the core of my being, one decision does not define you. We tend to magnify the choices we've made, especially the ones that didn't turn out the way we imagined. We look back with a microscope, dissecting moments and thinking, what if I had waited? What if I had chosen differently? What if I hadn't been so naive? But all this does is tie our identity to a single moment in time. And we are so much more than that. We are dynamic, evolving, expansive human beings with the power to change, grow, and redirect the trajectory of our lives at any moment we choose. We were never meant to be defined by the moment we said, yes, or I do, nor by the first person we loved, or the path we took early in life when we didn't even fully know who we were. Those moments are part of our story, yes, but they are not the whole story. In fact, they're just the opening scene. What happens next? That's where our power lies. There is this illusion that runs deep in our culture, that one wrong choice locks us into a life we didn't fully choose, and there's no way out. That we should carry shame or guilt for not having known better. But here's the thing. You only know what you know when you know it, and the version of you who made that decision did the best she could with the understanding she had. That isn't weakness. That's being human. We must stop punishing ourselves for choices made in a different season of life. You didn't have the perspective you have now. You didn't have the tools, the insight, or the emotional maturity you've gained since. And that's okay. That doesn't make you broken. That makes you in motion. Growth is not a straight line. It's a series of awakenings. And if you've woken up to feelings of dissatisfaction, pain, or emotional restlessness, it doesn't mean your life is ruined. It means you're evolving. You're being called to reclaim your power. Not from the man you married or the past you regret, but from the belief that you can't become someone new, because you can. Every day, every moment. Life is not a sentence, it's an invitation. And what you do next holds far more weight than what you did then. Think of your life like a painting. Just because you made a brushstroke you don't love doesn't mean the whole canvas is ruined. You can layer, you can rework, you can even start anew. The point is, you are the one holding the brush. The decision you made to marry the first guy you met, that was just the background. What you choose to create on top of that is still entirely up to you. And maybe it wasn't all wrong. Maybe parts of that choice gave you strength you didn't know you had. Maybe that experience sharpened your awareness. Maybe it exposed parts of you that needed healing. And if you're willing to look at it through that lens, it stops being a prison and starts becoming a teacher. We spend too much time trying to rewrite our history in our minds, imagining what could have been instead of embracing what is. But your real power comes when you stop asking, what if? And start asking, what now? You are not the same woman who said yes all those years ago. That version of you was courageous in her own way. She stepped into the unknown. She hoped. She believed. That deserves respect, not resentment. And the truth is, it's often through the very decisions we regret that we're propelled into the greatest transformations of our lives. What seems like a mistake in the moment often becomes the very thing that opens the door to our awakening. And that awakening, though painful, is where your life begins to expand. You cannot become who you were meant to be without passing through the terrain of choices you now question. But that doesn't mean you stay stuck there. You can honor the road you took without chaining yourself to it. You can say, yes, that was my path, and now I choose something more. Because you are not your past. You are not a label. You are not a wife who settled, or someone who should have known better. You are consciousness in motion. You are becoming. And the first guy you met was part of your story. Yes. But he is not your definition. The definition is always being rewritten by your present awareness. And the more you connect with that, the more free you become. Regret is a heavy emotion. It creeps in slowly, quietly at first, until one day it becomes a loud, echoing voice in your mind. You start replaying old conversations, old decisions, old moments where you wish you had taken a different turn. Why didn't I wait? Why didn't I see the signs? Why did I say yes so quickly? These questions can consume your mental space, paralyze your confidence, and dim your self-worth. But there's something deeper underneath regret that most people never explore. It's a substitute for responsibility. It feels easier to bathe in the pain of the past than it does to own the power of the present. Regret is passive. It asks nothing of you but to replay memories like an endless film reel. It keeps you stuck in circular thoughts, hoping somehow that thinking more about the past will magically rewrite it. But responsibility, that's active. Responsibility says, yes, this is what happened, and now I choose how to respond to it. It's not about blame. It's not about shame. It's about reclaiming your power to act, to grow, to move forward. No matter what the past looks like. Most people think responsibility means admitting you were wrong. But that's not what this is about. This is about understanding that even if you made a decision from confusion, from fear, from naivety, you now have the power to make new choices with greater awareness. And that's where all your emotional liberation lies. Not in fixing the past, but in stepping into the now with clarity. When you get stuck in regret, you give your power away to a version of yourself that no longer exists. You hand over control to the you who made that decision without considering the fact that you are not that person anymore. That woman didn't have the strength, wisdom, or emotional muscles you've developed since. She was doing the best she could, but here's the catch. You're still treating yourself as if you're stuck being her. And that's not true. Responsibility begins when you say, I accept that I made this choice. I own it. And now I will choose again. That's not about staying in a situation that doesn't serve you. It's not about suppressing your pain. It's about deciding to live above the emotion instead of under it. Responsibility lifts you. It gives you ground to stand on when everything else feels shaky. The longer you swim in regret, the more you reinforce the idea that you are powerless. But when you shift to responsibility, you start to see every experience, even the painful ones, as fuel for your evolution. You no longer see yourself as a victim of your decisions. You see yourself as someone capable of transformation because of them. That shift alone can change the entire direction of your life. Responsibility means facing uncomfortable truths. It means looking at where you gave away your voice, your standards, or your self-trust, and not judging yourself for it, but learning from it. It means asking real questions like, what was I needing at the time I made that choice? Was I trying to feel safe? Was I looking for love in the first person who offered it? Was I trying to follow an idea of what life should look like? These are not accusations. They are awakenings. The answers may hurt, but they also hold the key to healing. You may feel trapped by your choices, especially when it comes to something as emotionally charged as marriage. Society doesn't make it easy. People will tell you to stick it out, to be grateful, to make it work. But responsibility doesn't mean staying in something that's killing your spirit. It means getting brutally honest with yourself about what you really want, and being willing to change direction, even if it scares you. It's easy to stay in cycles of regret, because they don't require action. They only require feeling bad. But if you want to move forward, you have to break that cycle. You have to choose the harder, braver path, the path of ownership. And that starts by saying, "This happened. I may not have liked it. I may not have been ready. But I am not helpless. I am still the one holding the reins." When you take responsibility, you also open the door to self-compassion. You stop beating yourself up. You realize that every woman has her own story, her own pain, her own lessons to learn. And maybe this was yours. Maybe this was the experience that was meant to shake you awake and show you your strength. Maybe it's not about whether you should or shouldn't have married him. Maybe it's about what this experience is asking you to become. You get to redefine what this chapter means. Not your partner, not your family, not your friends, you. And once you do, you stop looking backward with regret and start looking forward with resolve. You start realizing that your future is not written by what you did. It's written by what you choose now. Negative emotions can feel like waves that crash over you without warning. Grief, anger, shame, guilt, fear. They have a way of pulling you under and making you believe they are permanent, that they define your reality, that they are who you are. But the truth is, they are not who you are. They are not fixed. They are not facts. They are signals, temporary expressions of internal states, and they are almost always rooted in one thing: thought. Every feeling you've ever had, good or bad, originated from a thought. That thought may have been conscious, like a judgment you made about yourself, or unconscious, like a belief absorbed in childhood that still runs quietly in the background of your mind. But either way, the emotion you feel today is the direct product of a thought you're entertaining, whether you realize it or not. That means you are not at the mercy of your emotions. You are the source. And when you understand that, your entire experience of life changes. Most people never stop to examine the thoughts that are creating their emotional reality. They just feel bad and assume that the emotion is the truth. I feel anxious, so something must be wrong. I feel sad, so I must be broken. I feel regret, so I must have ruined everything. But feelings aren't evidence. They are feedback. They don't say what's true. They say what's present. And what's present is what you're thinking. When you think, "I married too quickly. I should have waited," you feel regret. When you think, "I've wasted my best years," you feel panic or grief. When you think, "I'll never find happiness now," you feel despair. The emotion flows directly from the thought, not from the marriage itself, not from the past, not from the other person, but from the narrative you're running inside your own mind. And the most powerful thing about that realization is this: you can change the narrative. Your mind is like a projector, and the thoughts you focus on are the film running through it. If you don't like the movie playing in your life, you don't smash the screen. You change the reel. You choose different thoughts. This doesn't mean pretending everything is okay. It doesn't mean denying the pain. It means refusing to be dominated by thoughts that keep you powerless, bitter, or frozen. It means deciding to think on purpose. You could wake up and think, "I made a mistake." Or you could wake up and think, I made a decision with the understanding I had at the time, and now I'm choosing to grow from it. The first thought will generate guilt and shame. The second thought will generate self-respect and motivation. The only difference between the two experiences is the thought you chose to focus on. We have been conditioned to believe that emotions just happen to us, like weather patterns we can't control. But emotions are not weather. They are creations. And your mind is the creator. That means you have the ability to feel differently. Not by suppressing or ignoring what you feel, but by addressing the thought that gave birth to the feeling in the first place. The reason this is so powerful is because it puts you back in control. Instead of being the victim of your moods, you become the observer of your mind. Instead of drowning in waves of sadness or anger, you learn how to trace those waves back to their source: a belief, a judgment, a fear, a story. And once you see the story clearly, you can question it. You can interrupt it. You can rewrite it. This is not about positive thinking for the sake of optimism. This is about energetic alignment. When you think thoughts that are empowering, honest, and rooted in possibility, your emotional state changes. Your body changes. Your behavior changes. Your life changes. You start to show up differently in the same situations, and those situations begin to shift. For example, if you think, "I'm trapped in this marriage," how do you feel? Powerless, resentful, stuck. But if you think, "I'm responsible for how I show up in this relationship, and I have options," what happens? You feel more grounded, more awake, more open to possibility. The external situation hasn't changed, but your energy has. And when your energy changes, your decisions change. And that's how transformation begins. The thoughts you think are not neutral. They carry weight. They carry frequency. And they are shaping your entire experience, moment by moment. If you want to overcome negative emotions, the work isn't to fight the feeling. It's to investigate the thought that created it. That's where the freedom is. That's where the shift begins. We all carry mental habits, thought patterns that were passed down, picked up, or formed through repeated exposure. And unless you stop to challenge them, they become automatic. You live your whole life responding emotionally to thoughts you didn't even choose. But you can choose them now. You can notice when your mind says, "You should have done better," and replace it with, "You did the best you could with what you knew." You can catch the thought that says, "It's too late," and shift to one that says, "I'm just getting started." That's not delusion. That's conscious creation. And the more you practice it, the more natural it becomes. Emotional mastery isn't about never feeling low. It's about not being dominated by low energy thoughts. It's about reclaiming your inner environment. Because once you realize that you are the thinker of the thought, not the thought itself, you stop being a prisoner of your mind and become the master of it. There comes a moment when the pain of staying the same becomes heavier than the fear of change. When you've replayed the past enough times, felt the weight of your choices enough mornings in a row, and sat with questions that offer no resolution, something inside you stirs. That stirring is not madness, and it's not selfishness. It's vision. It's the whisper of who you could become if you allowed yourself to move beyond the story you've been telling. Because the truth is, no matter what choices you've made, no matter how far off course you feel, you are always one decision away from changing everything. But that shift doesn't begin with action. It begins with clarity of vision. Vision is the antidote to regret. It is what pulls you forward when the past wants to pull you under. When you create a vision of the life you want to live, of the woman you want to be, of the peace you want to feel. You begin to tap into a different energy entirely. Not the energy of fixing or repairing your life, but the energy of creating a new one. And that creation starts not with the world outside of you, but with the world inside your mind. Most people don't have a vision. They have memory. They live by what they've experienced, what they've seen, what they've been told. Their mind is a loop of old experiences, old feelings, old fears, and so they recreate the same results over and over again. But you were not born to relive your past. You were born to imagine something more. And imagining more is not nah. It is the most courageous thing you can do when your reality doesn't reflect what you hoped for. When you married the first guy you met, maybe you did it because it felt right at the time, or because you were afraid of being alone, or because it seemed like the next step in life. Whatever the reason, the decision was made. And now you live with the results of that decision. But that does not mean your future is locked in. The past only has the power to repeat itself when you give it permission. Vision is how you take that permission back. Vision is how you override the default programming. When you begin to ask, what do I want now? Who do I want to be now? What kind of relationship do I want to feel? What kind of life feels meaningful to me? You move out of reaction and into creation. That shift may not change your circumstances overnight, but it will change you. And when you change, the world around you eventually reflects it. That's not wishful thinking. That's alignment. The mind, when focused on what's missing or what went wrong, produces more lack and more pain. But when the mind becomes anchored in possibility, the emotional frequency shifts. You start to feel not just what is, but what could be. You start to make choices based on a desired future, not a painful past. And that's when power returns to you. That's when life stops being something that happens to you and starts being something that happens through you. The power of vision is not just in what it creates outside of you. It's in who you become while holding it. A woman with vision walks differently. She speaks differently. She no longer apologizes for wanting more. She no longer justifies staying small. She understands that honoring a new vision does not mean betraying her past. It means she is finally ready to build something from a higher level of awareness. Your vision doesn't need to be clear at first. It may start as a feeling. Peace, freedom, joy, lightness. Let it grow from there. Ask yourself, if I had no fear, no guilt, no pressure to keep playing the same role, what would I want? If I believed I was worthy of happiness and expansion, what would I allow? These questions aren't just mental exercises. They are the beginning of your liberation. They are how you begin to remove the emotional residue of choices that no longer reflect who you are becoming. You may be in a relationship that no longer matches your values. You may be living a life that was chosen out of old beliefs or unmet needs. That's okay. That's not failure. It's feedback. And once you see it for what it is, you don't have to hate the life you built. You just have to outgrow it. That's the difference vision makes. It gives you permission to evolve. When you live by vision, you no longer seek permission from others to change. You no longer need their validation to trust your path. You realize that staying stuck serves no one. Not your partner. Not your family. Not your future self. Choosing vision is choosing responsibility for your joy, your peace, your growth. It's saying, I will not shrink to fit the old version of me. I will rise. You don't need to know how everything will unfold. Vision doesn't demand that. It only requires that you stop defining your life by what was and start guiding it by what could be. Even if nothing changes on the outside at first, something radical shifts on the inside. You begin to live from intention instead of inertia. You begin to act from possibility rather than pain, and slowly, you start to rebuild your life, not from guilt, not from fear, but from truth. Your truth? The one you've been burying under years of stories, compromise, and silence. The one that's been waiting for you to remember who you are. The one that says, you don't need permission to change. You only need vision.